What's up, y'all? It's your boy Diddy with my newest edition of Cribs.
On May 26, 2025, a joint task force made up of federal agents and local police launched a surprise raid on a secluded mansion deep within Hidden Hills, a gated upscale neighborhood in Los Angeles. Known for housing Hollywood's elite, the mansion wasn't listed in any of Sean Diddy Combs' public property records. Yet an anonymous source provided its exact location, along with a chilling warning: there are bodies, there's something far worse than you think. For years, whispers about Diddy's dark lifestyle and shadowy activities circulated within the entertainment industry, but this was the first time a full-scale legal action had been taken, armed with hard evidence quietly gathered over several months. The raid didn't just uncover an abandoned home, it cracked open what appears to be a complex web of power, control, and possibly crime. What investigators found: bodies, documents, and disturbing footage is now raising chilling questions. What really happened behind those locked doors for nearly 2 years? And more disturbingly, who knew but chose to stay silent? One investigation background. The investigation did not begin with a search warrant, it began with a whispered confession backstage at a fashion show in May 2025. A former assistant to Diddy, who had worked closely with him for over 6 years and whose identity remained strictly protected, approached a federal agent with visible distress. "I used to hear screams, gunshots from the basement of that mansion, and after that night someone never came back." Shortly afterward, an internal verification process was launched. The address provided by the whistleblower led investigators to Hidden Hills, a gated enclave home to multi-million-dollar estates, many owned by celebrities, athletes, and music producers. But this mansion was different. It was not listed under Diddy's public property records. In fact, it didn't appear on any real estate listings connected to his parent company or affiliated trusts. Satellite images revealed frequent activity at the location until mid-2023, after which it abruptly went silent, almost as if it had been erased from the technological map. Suspicion deepened when land registry data showed the property was purchased through a Cayman Islands-based entity in 2021, and then passed through 3 different shell companies within just 14 months, according to financial analyst Stephen Miles. This is a textbook move for someone trying to leave no direct trace of ownership, especially if that asset might be linked to illicit operations. The whistleblower also provided several old photos, believed to be from 2022, showing Justin Combs, Diddy's son, along with several models and rappers partying at the mansion. Several other figures appear blurred in the background and remain unidentified, but the images reinforced suspicions that the property was far from abandoned as its facade suggested. In early April 2025, the FBI and the Financial Crimes Investigation Bureau (FCI) jointly launched a covert task force under the codename Project Echo, aimed at probing undisclosed real estate, cryptocurrency transactions, and ongoing litigation surrounding Sean Combs. One leaked document from Cassie's lawsuit was also brought into the case as corroborative evidence. In it, she referred to a place in Hidden Hills no one was allowed in without his explicit permission. The overlap placed this secret mansion squarely in investigators' crosshairs. By early May, federal agents had been quietly surveilling the area, documenting at least 3 appearances of unidentified vehicles within 500 meters of the house during the night, even though the main gate was padlocked and security cameras had been disabled. On June 17, 2025, the FBI officially secured a federal search warrant from a Los Angeles court. The affidavit cited a high probability of evidence related to serious criminal acts, including unlawful detention, concealment of human remains, and the use of property for money laundering. The operation involved 11 federal agents, 6 officers from the LAPD, 2 field forensic specialists, and 1 digital technology unit. The raid commenced at 4:42 a.m., a time chosen based on low activity patterns in the Hidden Hills community. The target property sat near the end of a cul-de-sac, isolated by rows of 4 meters high trees. Agents deployed surveillance drones and electromagnetic lock breakers to gain entry, avoiding any destruction to doors or windows in order to preserve the crime scene. One of the first agents to enter described the setting: total silence, rusted chains on the gate, but signs of life inside. The smell of fresh takeout, a smoked cigarette still burning in the ashtray, and tire marks freshly imprinted in the soil. This contrasted starkly with the property's official classification as abandoned. In tax and real estate filings inside the mansion felt frozen in time. An old phone with no battery lay face down on the dining table. The second-floor bed bore crushed linens and several doors showed signs of being broken from the inside, as if someone had been locked in. Field Agent Henry Lell assessed. It was immediately clear this wasn't just a forgotten space, it was deliberately hidden, intended to be erased. When the team moved to the basement concealed behind a wooden paneled wall, they discovered a 90-kilogram steel door, locked with a code it took 45 minutes to crack. The system, without damaging the structure behind the door, was a space lit by high-watt fluorescent lights, concrete flooring and soundproofed walls. This wasn't a wine cellar or a storage room, it was, according to criminal psychologist Dr. Brian Mercer, a room designed for control, isolation, and possibly torture. From that moment, the investigation escalated. From suspicion to full-scale crisis, what was found on site, from human remains and sensitive documents to storage devices, didn't just raise red flags, it opened a gateway into a dark reality most of the public had never imagined, a world where fame, wealth, and power are weaponized to control other human beings. To crime scene at the mansion when law enforcement agents stepped through the iron gates, overgrown with dead vines and rusted chains. The first thing they encountered wasn't danger but the spine-chilling silence that seemed to stretch indefinitely. The mansion's grounds, spanning more than 1 square mi, were abandoned in an unnervingly unnatural way. Weeds rose to knee-height and the windows had been boarded up with thick plywood. No doorbell, no nameplate, no indication that this estate had ever belonged to one of the most powerful entertainment moguls in America. On paper, the property was listed as uninhabited and inactive since July 2023, but the scene on site told a different story. Tire tracks at the garage entrance were fresh, the ground compacted by the weight of a heavy SUV. In a trash pile near the fence, forensic teams found fast food packaging from a nearby chain that only operated within a 5-kilometer radius, and the grease on the wrappers was still wet. Several half-SM smoked Marlboro Gold cigarettes were discovered under the eaves, an uncommon brand but one known to be favored by some of Diddy's former assistants, according to testimonies from previous lawsuits. Inside, everything seemed frozen in time. A leather couch in the living room was deeply scratched, as if someone had been dragged or had clung to it in desperation. The wall-mounted paintings had been removed, leaving lighter-colored outlines against the aging paint. A few photo frames remained, but their glass covers were shattered, and the images inside, especially those featuring Diddy, had been violently slashed. The second-floor bedroom was among the most heavily damaged areas. Bed linens were torn, the wardrobe was empty, and dried blood stained the wooden floor near the balcony door. On the wall, red marker scrolls had been partially wiped away, but words like "shut up, loyalty," and "no witness" remained legible. In the bathroom, the mirror was shattered, and scattered around the sink were empty bottles of powerful prescription sedatives, the kind only available under psychiatric authorization. One of the bottles still bore a faded prescription label for Jake Holmes, though the date had been rubbed off. Downstairs, a large safe was found in a storage room, already pried open. Inside were a few old pieces of jewelry, to notebooks, and a thick envelope marked with the initials Feet. Investigators initially suspected it stood for flex tapes, an alleged internal code name for recordings used to blackmail prominent figures, but the most significant discovery was in the basement, a section that did not appear in the original architectural plans. The entrance was cleverly concealed behind an antique wine rack, detected only by the smell of mildew and a sliver of light leaking through a cracked brick. The path downward was steep, narrow, with concrete walls and no windows. At the end of the corridor stood a heavy steel door, resembling one used in military bunkers, secured with a complex 4-tier code system. It took nearly an hour for the technical team to disable the locks without triggering the internal fail safes.